Welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Pines Between Two Skis podcast. I am Austin Rose here with Trent Walker, and today we're going to give you a rundown on the importance of ski boots.
Awesome.
So let's jump on into it. Trent, the first question I had for you today, and that I hope we could expand on, is what, in general, what importance does a ski boot play? Specifically in your performance and time on the mountain.
Right. Well, everyone knows that obviously ski boots is where comfort begins, right? Boots are going to make or break your day. But one thing that sometimes we forget is how much performance aspect is in our boots, right? We want our boot to be as tailored to us as possible. Because that's what's going to give us the best feel, the best comfort, and ultimately the best performance for us.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I want to chime in. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to really dive into why you should be paying attention to your boot, right? Mm-hmm. Why it's not just about the ski, not just about the binding. Really, all three of those come into play when it comes to performance.
Right.
Right. And that's where I want to kind of go with this is where we'll talk a little bit about how ski boots do affect your performance, like you said, but also how if you can tailor it to yourself, you will have a better time on the mountain. You'll be happier,
Yeah, absolutely.
Ski boots aren't the most comfortable thing, as we know, but they shouldn't be deterring you from skiing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, all right, cool. So let's jump on in here. First thing to talk about is going to be, what are the main factors that we should be considering in a boot? What would you say when we first bring up the main factors you should consider when buying a boot, or you should just consider in looking at your own boots?
Right. The first thing for me, and it's usually the one that stands out the easiest, is the flex, right? And there's a lot of people who don't know where to find that or what it means.
Yeah.
So I got my boot here. For those of you who are just listening, I've got a Technica Mach 1 120, and it says right here, 120.
Right on the toe of that boot.
Yeah, right on the toe.
Usually posted somewhere on the boot.
Yeah, and it's actually usually stamped right on the side, and it's usually a lot bigger. But that being our first indicator is something to pay a lot of attention to.
Okay.
You want to tailor that specifically to your style, to your weight, to your height, to your age, different things, to your strengths. And so to give you an example, this is a 120. I like to call myself a lazy but aggressive skier. And what I mean by that is I like my equipment to work harder for me than I have to work for it. To get the similar performance out of it.
For sure.
Yeah. So though this is a 120 boot, I've actually taken out, there's little pins in the back. And I've removed the top one in order to drop that 10. So it's really more of a 110 ski flex.
Right.
And it allows me to flex into that boot, but I don't have to work as hard to get the same response.
Yes. And for those of you listening there, most ski boots, if you aren't aware, have some sort of flex adjustment on the boot, ranging 5 to 10 stiffness level as far as adjusting the flex of the boot, right?
Right.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up are sizing and design style of ski boots, right? And those are kind of my top three when I look at what boot I want to buy, or what should I consider in what I'm riding in right now. Is the sizing correct to fit my foot? The flex, like you said, is it the flex I want? Is it the flex I need for how I ski? And third, is it the style of boot that fits my type of skiing? And that's kind of gearing towards, do I want a backcountry boot if I'm skiing in bounds? Probably not. What are the benefits and stuff like that? So let's hop in, and I want to talk a little bit about sizing. And I'll ask you straight up, Trent, is sizing important in a ski boot?
Wildly. It's super important. And a lot of people are like, oh, I wear a size 10 and a half. What's your 10 and a half equivalent in ski boots? That's not the way to approach sizing in ski boots, because a lot of us are wearing a size that's probably too big in our tennis shoes or our daily shoes because they're more comfortable.
Yeah. Right? And our activity is completely different, right? We're not skiing 60 miles an hour down a hill in our tennis shoes for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. For sure. And the other part to consider is ski boots sizing is generally based off the Mondo size, right? We run off like a European scale for most sizing in boots. So a 10.5 would say it's a 28.5.
Yeah.
Which, when you go into a ski shop, that's good to know your measurement is going to be a little different than you're used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So how should a ski boot fit as far as lengthwise goes, Trent?
Yeah.
How do you like it?
So when you put your foot in that boot, if your foot isn't touching if your toes aren't touching the end of that boot, it's too big for you.
Yeah, 100%.
And the reason that is, and a lot of people are like, wait, that doesn't make sense, right? Like if my toes are touching, it's too small.
Right.
And the reason that is when you flex into that boot and you work that boot, your toe's going to back off, right? And it's going to allow it to feel more comfortable. They're not walking boots, they're ski boots. They're not comfortable until you're skiing in them.
Yeah.
And that's another thing people often forget. I had a lady one time and she was like, my ski boots kill when I walk in them. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Right. So what you're saying there too specifically is when you first step into a ski boot, whether it's your own boot or you're trying one on in the store, your foot is actually not going to be to the back of the boot from that first step in. You're going to slide forward, so you're going to feel your toes touching the end, and you shouldn't be scared of that. Right.
And it's really like the angle of the boot is going to be more forward, and that's what's pushing you right to the front.
Right.
But then when you flex in and you get that momentum into that boot, it's going to pull your foot back. And that's when it becomes comfortable.
Right. That's the best time, as a salesman too, when I watch people get in, there's this myth on ski boots, and I'm sure majority of listeners are going to understand this, relate, and probably do it. Yeah. And I've done it a time or two here as well, but you put that ski boot on and first thing you do is you take your heel and you slam it as hard as you can against the ground.
Bam!
Yeah. Trying to shift your heel down, right? I always laugh because in reality, you are shifting the boot a little bit, but your calf is still blocking your heel from sliding to the back. So you're really not getting that extension as much as you're just slamming your boot against the ground.
Yeah.
You're right, causing some issues. So that's great though. What about a performance skier, right? Because from what I found, stepping into ski boots, you kind of have a different fit depending on if you want a more comfort in a ski boot or if you want to go high-end performance. Right.
And this is where when someone comes into a shop and, I sit them down and we measure their foot and then I stand them up and I have them weight their foot, right? And we're getting all these different measurements. If they're in between two sizes, right? Because ski boots only come in 0.5, right? And I don't mean, 28, 28.5, 29. No, it's 27.5, 28.5, 29.5.
Right. There are a few companies that will make a second mold in between, but it's very rare.
Yeah, it's less common. And if someone is, they're measuring at a 28, right? Then I ask that person, all right, what are you looking for? How aggressive of a skier are you? How many days are you getting? And they say, I'm an aggressive skier, right? Like, I'm getting, 21 plus days a season, right?
Yep.
That shows me that they're going to want something that's a little more snug. But then one thing that I reassure them, and I can reassure you guys, is the smallest your boot will ever be is the day you put it on in the shop. Yeah. Right? It's only going to get bigger. Right. And
why is that? Just skiing on it, right?
Exactly.
Packing it out.
And that term Austin just used is super common, packing it out. That's referring to the liner inside your boot just getting pressed up against so much that it molds to your foot or molds to that compression.
Yep.
Right. And so your boot's going to get bigger, right? Yeah. And so we want to size you a little more snug. Yeah. But let's take that same scenario. But the guy says, I'm really skiing one ski trip a year with my kids. We're probably maybe doing 2 or 3 days.
Right.
He's probably
greens all day. Yeah. Some blues when they get a little aggressive. Yeah.
So then you could jump up to, let's analyze some 28s or 28.5s, I mean, right? Because he's right on that threshold.
Give him that half size up for comfort.
Yeah, see how it feels for him.
Yeah, but not big enough that he is actually going a full size up per se, right?
And then the other thing to keep in mind, and this is something that I know Austin knows a great amount, but a lot of people don't, is sizing in ski boots is a little arbitrary, right? Because a 28.5 in a Rossignol isn't going to fit the same as a 28.5 in an Atomic.
100%.
Right? So if I get somebody and they say like, "Oh, I'm an aggressive skier that is looking for, they're right on that 28 line, so we're going to try on some 27.5s."
Yep.
I try on 27.5s in the brand that I know that runs big.
Right.
Because that gives them just a little extra space.
Yeah. And for the listeners there, I know it's hard to grab like knowledge on every brand in the industry, but generally, an easy trick is if you have current pairs that you're riding with and you know how that sizing feels and fits, start there, right? Then start branching out. When you are purchasing a new ski boot, that's one of those things that you almost always want to try it on in person.
Mm-hmm.
If I were buying online, I don't almost say find a company that you can buy that has a return policy and buy two.
Yeah. Well, totally.
That really brings me into our next point when Trent is talking about sizing and specifically how each boot does fit different. Another thing to look at is our last width, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite, one of the favorite boots that I love and I ride consistently is Salomon, right? Salomon branded boots. And Salomon generally fits on a narrower last and a tighter instep on by the ankle. And they do make other boots that expand to those that can't fit it, so anyone can fit that, right? However, you will feel them a little more snug on the side of the foot. So Trent, how do we fit a proper last width? And especially for somebody that maybe doesn't have the tools to measure their last width, right? So let's talk about how you would approach that in the store and then how you would do that at home buying online.
Right. So really, let's conquer the in-store first, right? Yeah. They should have tools to measure. If they don't, start in the middle.
Go to another store.
Yeah. Super valid. Right. If they don't, you're probably at a place that you're not going to get a ton of help. But they should be able to get a measurement. And that measurement can change if you weight your foot, right?
Right.
When you put weight on your foot, it's going to splay, right? It's going to put pressure on it and your foot's going to move.
Right. You've got a fallen arch. It's going to push out wide and that arch is going to fall too.
Exactly.
Right?
So having the unweighted measurement as well as the weighted measurement is important.
Yeah.
Right. Someone who has a really strong arch, they might not move in last when they step.
Right.
Or when they weight their foot. So then after that, really like your boot fitter, if someone's there with you helping you, they should be able to read that and go get a boot. And a lot of the times in the beginning, it's trial and error, right?
Right.
You and your boot fitter are both working out different kinks. Your boot fitter should be your guide, but you're still trying stuff on to make sure X, Y, and Z fit and feel comfortable.
Right. Awesome. That's great advice. And, to jump in now as we move into somebody who is seeing it from being at home, right? Because we want you to have the knowledge to be able to advise on the boot you buy in store or buy it online. And this is where I start talking about, okay, well, what's the standard in last width, right? We do see no matter what boot, no matter what size. So sizes, the bigger you go, the wider the last is going to change. And they actually give you a number in millimeters, and they're going to say, well, the last is 100 millimeters, and it's the same no matter what size it is, which is false, right? They use the millimeter marker there, that 100 millimeter last, to be a category, right? And this is across the board in ski shops. If you're lucky, you can dig and get some good information that actually tells you the measured last width. Most of them start around a 26, 27.5.
That's the benchmark.
Yep. So we talk about a narrow last is generally anything below or at like 98 and lower. Right. 98 millimeter last is going to be a narrow, tight performing last width. And for those of you that don't know, we haven't even mentioned it yet. Last width, what that is the width of the foot at its widest point. It's an angle measurement that's going across basically where the big toe and the ridge where your small toe is, the widest point.
Yeah,
right?
And it's like right at the knuckle of your big toe.
Yep.
All the way down to the knuckle of your little toe.
Yeah.
Some people have a little more meat closer to their ankle.
Yep.
That can
following the ridge area.
Exactly.
So one of my things to do is understanding these categories, and then just a quick breakdown. The categories of last width are going to be 98 is a narrow last, 100 is going to be a regular last, 102 is when we're going to start looking at a comfort fitting last. It's like a regular 100 to 102 to starting to be a little bit wider, and 104 and up is a wide last.
Yeah.
Right? Now, like we said, if you have a size 28.5 ski boot and it says 104, it's likely a 114, right? But that's our category is 104 of a wide fitting boot.
Yeah.
Right.
And you say like the comfort fit, right?
Yeah.
But there are people who their foot's a 104 last. If you put them in anything narrower, it can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one thing the ski industry is starting to evolve out of this, but one thing I don't love that they do is a lot of their highest performing boots are always narrow lasted.
Right.
It's like, well, what if I'm a high performing skier, but my foot's a 102 last, right? Yep. Like a large last, like what the heck?
Right. For high performance, we don't want the foot shifting whatsoever, and thus most industries start cutting out the wider fitting last, even though you might have a bigger foot.
Yeah.
Which is terrible. So then moving on from there, so if we are purchasing online, to give you a quick breakdown, my favorite thing to do is to first assess your foot. Easiest thing to do is just say, do I generally buy wide-fitting shoes, narrow-fitting shoes? I know how my foot kind of feels standing and looking at it. And then if you really want to get detailed, watch our videos on how to do a shell fit.
Yeah.
Right? And if you have a ski boot, pull the liner out of it, undo your buckles, and give yourself a shell fit and see where your foot fits within just the shell of the boot. And that will help you to determine what your next purchase will be.
Right. So then so let's say you're at home, you've done these steps, you've determined your width. Another thing that I would really recommend is, maybe checking out your tennis shoe or your normal shoe conversion to Mondo Point.
Yep.
And then dropping a size on the Mondo Point.
Yes.
And then starting there. I know there's things that you can print out Mondo sizes and then step on them, but a good rule of thumb is your regular shoe size, convert it to Mondo Point and drop one size.
Yep. And you can do that on Google, right? And just say, what's a Mondo size of a size 10 men's shoe?
Yep.
And it'll tell you it's a 28.5, which is a 10 and a half, right? Yep. Yeah, and it'll give you all those extra half sizes. So take that 28.5, drop it down one, start with a 27.5, right? And you should be solid.
Yep. Yeah. And really having someone there, like a boot fitter, to guide you through the process is really valuable.
Yep.
But we want to empower you guys to be able to make decisions from your house when it comes to ski gear.
Exactly.
If you can, go try stuff on. It's awesome.
Yep.
But if you can't, I think we lay down some good rules of thumb to at least get you started.
Or give us a call. We do have our on our website at intothepine.com. We've got our links that we can actually give you personal recommendations, walk you through that process. We've got a lot of guys on places like Curated and other resources for you to use. So reach out to those. Awesome. Well, with that, let's move on. We spent a lot of time on sizing. Hope you guys understand the reason for that is it is probably the most important step in your ski boot purchase. Next is I have on here flex, and we'll go through this one quickly. Flex and style. Trent, what's the general rule for flex range? How would you assess to what flex you should get in a ski boot?
Right. So we kind of broke down my flex already, right? I'm a lazy but aggressive skier, so I like a 110, something that's going to give me good restraint, good flex, but I'm not folding it. But at the same time, it's not fighting me too hard.
And a stiff flex would be a higher number, right?
Correct. Yeah. So then if let's get a beginner 17-year-old kid, weighs 100 pounds. Right?
Yeah, maybe first time skiing.
Yeah.
Right?
A 90, maybe even an 85 flex is going to be great for him. And what if you don't quite understand what flex means? It's how much the boot is going to, how rigid it is.
Right.
Right. And so when you lean into that boot, if it's really holding you back, that's what you're feeling as the flex.
Right.
So a 60 flex boot is going to be easier for you to put your shin on the front of it and get it to move.
Yeah, very soft and malleable plastic.
Exactly.
Right? Really nice so that you can, flex is a good thing, and it just depends on the skier. Allows you to activate the skis a little bit better. Right.
So then let's go back to our example: 17-year-old kid.
Yeah,
pounds,
so 17-year-old male,
Yeah.
right? We're saying, 130, 140 pounds,
Yeah,
maybe.
let's do that. That
Right.
makes more sense. So he comes in. If it's his first time skiing, there's different muscles as well. If you put that kid in a 100 boot, depending on the brand, he might not be able to flex it well enough to get it to perform the way it should.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
So then that's when you would step into the boot, flex it, see how it feels, see how it bends. If you're in a shop and you're bending the boot, that's good. We want some bend, right? Because it's warm in the shop. Once you go out of the shop, it gets cold. That plastic's going to become more stiff, right? So it's going to be even more rigid when you lean into it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your middle ground. Obviously, 60 is softer, all the way up to 130. Recreational ski boots usually only go up to about 130. Everything above that, you're getting into race territory.
Right. And, there are different flex preferences for juniors, males, and females. And we'll hop in that. I have, some questions coming up here for you, Trent, in just a bit about what you should look for female riders, female skiers, wanting a boot that fits them. For the general industry, what we're talking is looking at boots that will range anywhere between 50, 60 flex up to 130, what Trent's talking about there. If you break that down into three categories, you could say 50 to 90 are your beginner skiers. 90, well, I'd even actually don't like to use the term beginner in this section as much as I'd say 50 to like 80, 85 are going to be generally your more comfort style skiing or easier flex skiing. Yep.
Yeah.
Your middle ground boots as far as intermediate performance and stiffness level, about 90, 100, 105, 110s, and 110s to 130s are definitely more aggressive, stiff ski boots for high performance skiing.
Right.
Or heavier skiers.
Yeah, exactly.
Weight and height do have a ratio that affect how you're going to flex that boot.
Absolutely. Right. So if you have 5'2", 32-year-old lady coming in, right? She's not going to be able to get the same amount of leverage on a ski boot as, someone who's 6'1", 200 pounds.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to have differences there. But that doesn't mean that the ski boot you put the 5'2" individual in is going to be a beginner boot, but it's just a better fit for them, even though the flex is lower.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was like my next question there that Trent is hitting, and I hope you guys recognize this. You're going to see it in every video on how to decide gear. Is the first thing you do is you analyze yourself by saying, generally, it's the same thing we use for our skier types, right?
Yeah.
Height, weight, age, skier type, right?
Yep.
That is my decision on my boots. That's how I decide my skis. That's how I decide my clothes. You want to make sure you put yourself in what category of skier are you, and what are your aspects of your skiing. Where are you skiing? All that kind of stuff to just help say, okay, that's what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, people come into a shop not even having thought about that yet, right? So first step. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to style real quick. We don't need to spend a whole ton on here, but what are the different types of ski boots that are on the market? What are their fits? Generally talking like backcountry. We know we've got even cross country. What are you looking for to make sure you don't end up with the wrong style, and what are the benefits and uses for those?
Right. So when we are talking about style, let's just break it down real quick. So we've got your cross country. That's almost like a leather boot.
Yep.
And
not really even considered in our podcast for the most part because it's a whole different sport.
Yeah. So then let's get into, your standard alpine boots, right? Those are going to be, you've got a couple different styles within that. And what they are is you have your like traditional two-piece, that would be like your foot mold and then your upper cuff. Mm-hmm. And then you have three-piece boots or cabrio boots, which the tongue of that boot is going to
pull off the boot a little bit, like a whole third piece.
Exactly. Yeah. And those boots, like the full tilts were really popular with those. They're not called full tilts anymore. But K2's got them. Dalbello has a lot of cabrio design boots. Yep. And the flex comes from a different spot in the boot. It works really well for some people. The traditional two-piece boots are awesome. They are able to do just about everything, but your flex is coming from a different spot within the boot.
Awesome. And then, another one that you see a lot here are these hybrid alpine boots and backcountry boots. Right. A backcountry boot is going to be more designed for the ability to hike uphill and have some performance skiing downhill. Right. Generally, you're going to notice on a backcountry boot, they do have flex ratings, right? But they are going to be a little bit different look, different feel. I've even seen some that they're a two-piece shell mold, but like almost a single piece. Like they just have a tongue and then the rest of the boot.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all designed to be lightweight, not really a comfortable boot, to be honest with you, because it's all built for hiking uphill and then skiing down. And having the lightest gear is the trend in the backcountry market. So shed as much as you can, keep it light, keep it easy, keep it, nothing too fancy.
Right. Well, then you have boots like the Atomic Backland, where like what's locking you in isn't buckles, but like a boa system.
Yep.
Right. Like,
exactly.
But then you have the hybrids.
Right.
And the hybrids are becoming way more popular, where you get something like an Atomic Hawks Prime, and then you have the Atomic Hawks Prime XTD. And the only difference is the XTD stands for extended, and it allows you to walk, and it has pin inserts in the toe so that you can use a backcountry or tech binding to hike up. But then that boot will still perform almost as well as its alpine counterpart.
Right. And hybrid boots, I love this term, and it is almost like a whole niche in the industry that we're getting to in skis, boots, clothing, bindings, and some are great, some are terrible. And we'll have a whole thing to break that down for you, but those hybrid boots are really, especially in ski boots, have become an awesome feature that you don't need to spend, another $800 on a ski boot just for the backcountry and for a separate one for inbounds. We're actually having a lot of upgraded technology, helps us get one boot that actually does both really well. Right. There are advantages to having separate ones, just so I don't, piss off those viewers that are just, that are diehard on having to. There is benefits to it that we can talk about at another time. But these hybrid boots come with a lot of cool features. Walk modes are something we're seeing standard across the board on most boots, right? Which is awesome. It's just a feature on the back of the boot, similar to a backcountry boot, that you can allow it to hike and flex. And then you can lock it down in a range that gives you a better stiffness for when you ski down, right? And we see those in boots just for walking across the parking lot. Biggest complaint from customers is I can't walk on ice in the parking lot. And, no one can, but they do help, right? And they are awesome.
And sometimes these ski boots that you're talking about, where they're not really backcountry boots, they don't have pin inserts or anything, they still have a walk mode. When I was working at a custom boot shop, we called that beer mode. Or bar mode, right? Because you're really just gonna flip it to that mode so you can go hang out, right?
Yeah, exactly. But cool with these hybrid boots is you do have a lot as you get into the strict the actual hybrid section. Not just a cool feature that they can be used for backcountry. Like we said, Solomon does theirs. They have the Solomon Shift Pro binding That's an awesome one. I know they used to do like the QST Pros, and they still have a few floating around here. Dalbello's got a bunch, and they are really cool features, something to look for. And just a quick note that if you are interested in buying a hybrid boot, to make sure you understand and see the ISO standard listed on the bottom sole of the boot. If it is grip block, if it is a rockered sole, you will need to match that standard with your binding so you have a safe performing binding in the downhill.
Right. So, well, Austin kind of glossed over that.
Yeah, big section.
But that's so important. I had a shift binding, right? And I didn't have a backcountry boot, but I wanted to ride this ski in bounds.
Yes.
So I put in my standard Alpine plastic soles.
Right.
And I had thought that my AFD had slipped, but really it was I had not adjusted my AFD appropriately for my boot.
Right.
And when I got going 55 miles an hour and then my boot slipped inside my binding, I thought I was gonna die. Right?
Like, the whole thing shifts and you can't even control the ski, and that AFD plate is critical.
Right. So your tech should be setting that up for you, but being aware of it is good.
Yes. And that's going to be a part of our Into the Pine YouTube videos. We go a lot more into detail on how to set up your bindings, how to set up your boots, something that you really want to see visually to understand what we're talking about, especially if the word AFD does not make any sense to you.
Yeah.
Right. So awesome. So our next section that I wanted to talk to you about, Trent, here, and my next question is talking about a quick difference between women's versus men's versus a junior ski boots. And really don't need to spend a ton of time, but I really want to stress the importance of the development of women's ski boots. Huge market and something that we really need to be thinking about in the ski industry, designing boots cater towards different people.
Right? Totally. And this is becoming way more apparent in the ski industry, right?
Yeah.
Before it was like shrink it, peak it, put it on the shelf, away we go, right?
Yeah.
But now we're starting to see more of the biomechanics of women versus men, what women do when they ski versus what men do when they ski. And
right.
One thing that's really important, that's really apparent, is I've put a lot of ski boots on women, and one of the first things they say to me is, I have a really big calf. This isn't like, just so you know.
Yep.
And I think it's more that they think that it's abnormal. Right. Or something. And they're like, just so you know, like if you have a boot that can accommodate accordingly.
Yep.
I would say that the majority of ski boots have that accommodation already. And it's because women's calves sit a little bit higher. No, a little bit lower on their leg than men's does.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the women's ski boots, their upper cuff isn't as tall as men's boots. Yes. And it's to help accommodate for that.
Right. Exactly. And I love that. It's funny because everyone comes in, we're always self-conscious about ourselves, but it is, become like a scientific truth there that the women's calves are generally a little bit lower on the leg, and they can be a little bit bigger, specifically just talking about the difference in body structure. Now,
right.
That varies depending on height, weight, everything.
Right. Not everyone's the same.
Yep. And I've met women that I've sold ski boots to that are, 6'1", and their calves are going to be a little bit more elongated, and that's just the design of the body. Right. But I do love that, we are building ski boots, like you said, and women's ski boots are catered to being, having a little cutout actually on the calf of the ski boot. And what it really does is basically puts the pressure, instead of being on that bulge of the calf area, the calf muscle, going just underneath it, so the pressure isn't hitting there, right? And if you do still feel that pressure, there are other ways that we can combat that we'll talk about in just a sec here. Right? Same for men that have bigger calves. There are specific boots that aren't pink women's ski boots or just women's ski boots in general. If you want a men's boot, it doesn't have to be pink.
Right. So then another distinguisher, right? So men's, you have the jump. Now let's talk junior.
Yes.
I've helped people and they're like, well, just put me in the junior boot because it's cheaper.
Right.
right?
Or my foot's small enough it fits it. So I want to snag that.
Yeah. Please don't ever do this.
Ski, boot, binding, worst decision you'll make as an adult skier.
Yeah. It's made to fit on the inside to a kid's foot, right? Yes. So it's not going to be comfortable for you. You're going to want it to be punched. You're going to want all this work to be done. Whereas if you were to get a boot fit for you, it's going to be better.
100%.
So then kids' boots, once again, shorter cuff. Because obviously they're not as tall, they're not as big.
Right.
And then, like I said, they're going to fit a little more snug because kids' feet aren't as they're still growing, right?
Right.
So they usually don't have weird little nuances that everyone's foot has something different to it, right?
Right. Exactly. And even if you can find the right flex, like generally kids' boots and junior boots will be a smaller flex, but you do get racers that are junior racers that are stiff flex boots. And it reminds me of a shop story that Trent and I share working in the same shop at a time, of someone that came in and said, I have this boot, had it since I was a kid, and it's a 130 race boot, and it just doesn't fit my foot anymore. Can we widen it? And we're, even though it says 100 last, like we talked about, this is going to change between also having a junior boot. That last is a category. Yep. So, when you have a boot like that is designed to fit a junior foot, low volume, not much room, spending $200 for someone to try and punch and widen that ski boot is not worth your time.
No, or your money.
Yeah, that's going to be one to really make sure you fit in and get the properly sized boot for you. Yeah. Sizing.
Yeah, right? It's key.
So, awesome. Okay, let's hop over. Quick note I wanted to hit on here too is buying a used boot versus a new ski boot. I get this question all the time in shops, just online viewers. What are the benefits of a used boot versus a new ski boot? Are there really these kind of myths and things that we hear about used ski boots just being the worst thing for your foot? Is it true? What are your thoughts, Trent?
Yeah, so used ski boots, really your biggest takeaway from used ski boots is obviously the price, right? But there are going to be things that you're going to have to pay for later.
Yep.
Right? Because let's say we take a used ski boot that's been skied for 2 seasons. And that's, if you can find a used ski boot that's been skied for 2 seasons, it's only like 2 times a season, that's still, I would categorize that more in the new ski boot.
That's very lightly used.
Yeah.
So you can get them, but yeah.
But once that ski boot's broken in, it's that person's or it's yours, right? So if you get a used ski boot and it's broken into someone else's foot, it will never break into your foot.
Yeah.
It's always going to feel kind of weird. And there's things you can do to punch. But once again, where you made up the money, the difference between used and new, you will end up spending on getting someone to tailor your boot.
100%. Even if you're looking at buying a new liner, unfortunately, liners often cost just as much as the boot itself.
Yeah.
Right.
You can get an Intuition liner for $300, right?
Yeah. Right. But you also can look at buying a new ski boot for $400 that could even be a step up for you.
Exactly.
So that's a great point. Love that you hit on it, and love that you also didn't downgrade the fact that you can find boots at a low cost being used. And to give you guys a general perspective of maybe what to look for if you are looking to get a used ski boot, because I don't like to deter low cost options from people that are wanting to just enjoy the sport and don't have the funds right in this industry that's just blown out of proportion.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, I would say if you are looking at a boot like that, if you can snag a ski boot that has been skied less than 15 times, you are in a great deal.
Yeah.
Right? That once you hit 10, 15 days, that boot is molding to that person's foot. Same reason you wouldn't buy a used shoe generally for like a runner, right? And you can and you will at different times, but your best buy is going to be what you'd say 10, 15 days use on the mountain.
One thing I love that you point out, you didn't give it a season mark, right? Like, oh, well, this is only 1 season old. Cool. If homeboy rode 36 days in that one season, like that boot is still molded to him.
Yes.
Right.
This is why I deter buying used, is because you never know who you're dealing with. The shop isn't going to lie to you and try and swindle and just say it's 1 season old. And I've met many people through my days of used shopping that do say it's only 1 season, bro, or whatever. And they're trying to get their money's worth out of an old boot. So, all right. Number 5 on my list of questions on ski boots here, right? What work can be done to ski boots to better the fit? And this is a big section, a big question, because there is a whole industry designed to fitting ski boots and shoes. The Good Feet store, right? Surefoot.
Yep.
You got these massive, massive companies making a lot of money to tailor your boots. So let's go through this one. We're going to go through a little quickly. And first go through what are the common pains, right? That you're going to feel in a ski boot that is not an abnormal pain, but is a sign that maybe either if you're trying a boot on, maybe it's not the right fit, or maybe there is a little work that needs to be done.
Right. And I kind of want to draw a line there, right? In the ski boot with a proper fit but needs a little work, and the ski boot, if you're doing a lot of work to your boot, you probably bought the wrong boot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We want you, when you buy a boot, to be at minimum 80% there. Right? In fit. At minimum.
Yes.
Right? And if we need to tailor something here or there, let's say you have a bone spur or something, that's where we can punch it. Right? And that's what we're trying to get to. So let's say you've bought the right boot. It fits at 90%. You need a little bit of 10% tweaking. And once again, there's probably about 5 to 10% of tweaking that comes from just skiing the boot.
Right, breaking it in.
Yep.
That pack out, I put in air quotes there, that just getting it formed around your foot.
Yeah, and a lot of times it can be skied.
Fix itself.
It will do that.
Yeah.
But let's take a boot 80 to 85, right?
Yep, we know it's got a little bit of pain somewhere.
Right.
And so what are these pains that we're feeling?
So let's start with a heat mold. Right. So a heat mold, we're going to pull the liner out of the boot. We're going to heat it up. We're going to put it on your foot. We're going to put it back in the boot, and we're going to tighten it. And it's going to expedite the break-in process.
Right.
One thing that's important is once you heat mold, you can't go back.
Yes.
Right. So let's say you're like, okay, I got these boots online and I can return them. Once you heat mold them, they're yours.
Right.
Because you've broken them into you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one way to adjust. And then let's go into footbeds.
Yeah. And before you hop in there real quick, I wanted to mention, I love that that's the first thing you bring up, because it is a question viewers often have is like, what is the heat mold and is it worth doing? Right. It is an accelerated, expedited version of the break-in process. Right. It helps get those little kinks out that you might feel just from your first day of skiing on the boot. It's not going to hurt you from doing it unless there is you can't take it back. Right. Generally, shops will even have certain rules on exchange processes, even through a heat mold.
Yeah.
Right. Just because you're molding that liner. Right. And before we hop into some of these other footbeds and things, I want to mention real quick the pains that we are fixing here and the common pains we are going to be feeling in a ski boot. You might be feeling generally toe pain, arch pain, calf, right? And then I even throw in here thigh, right? Now a thigh pain is going to be more based off of an improper boot flex.
100%.
Which is why I throw that in there.
Yeah, you nailed that. Right.
So just having something that's not putting too much pressure that you have to sit yourself up with your thigh.
Right.
So let's hop in. Like you said, we were moving into footbed, as I interrupted there.
Very you're rudely. Good. That was great. So when someone comes to me and they say, I have problems, I always say, all right, let's talk about a heat mold. How many days have you already skied the boot? If someone comes to me and they're like, well, I've skied it 10 times. Right. Then a heat mold might not do very much for that person. Right. Because they've already broken it in. So the next step is, okay, a footbed. What's a footbed going to do? Well, it's going to allow your foot to have some support underneath it. So when you weight that foot, it doesn't splay out as much. Right. And then that allows it so it's not bumping up against the walls of your boot. It allows your energy transfer to be better. So it improves your performance, but it also can improve your comfort.
Right.
There is a caveat, and it's not for everybody, but it is in my case. I have a high instep or a high arch.
Yep.
So when I put a footbed under my foot, it does raise your foot in that boot a little bit.
Right.
And because I have a high arch, I actually had to do work to the liner to make up for that space because it was killing the top of my foot.
Right. Mm-hmm. Definitely. And this is, why we get the boots to 80-90% fit. Because if we are starting with a boot that is too small, we have a bit, it's got a low volume and we have a high arch, high instep. I like to call that too, where your ankle is a little bit bigger. You're going to want a bigger boot, right? Yeah. So when we get into that footbed, and also called, we know these as insoles. Mm-hmm. Number one guaranteed thing you should do, even if you don't have foot problems, I recommend putting in an insole.
Yeah.
Right. We are an active sport. That insole is going to provide better support. Most general insoles in a $600 boot, whatever you're buying, is still a flat piece of foam. And it does, as Trent say, it does vary. If you have an arch and you've never had troubles with your shoes or anything before, and in today's era, you probably know this by now. If you have that stiff arch that's going to hold you up fine, it may not be necessary, right? But for most of the public, I have found that any kind of footbed, if you're even talking something like a Dr. Scholl's that you're just cutting to fit, where you don't have to worry about the volume, buying low profile footbeds are going to give you just a better comfort, better support.
Yeah, and I would even say that with customers that I've worked with, customers who say, I want a footbed, and then we use the footbed during the fit process and during the try-on process, that customer is happier and more comfortable in their ski boot off the bat than someone who didn't.
100%. Yep. Mm-hmm. So definitely a buy that I recommend, something that we talk about and give out links to all the time for buying these, even on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move now into the heel lifts and, what can you do and what would somebody at the shop do to help fix, pains in the boot?
Right. So now we've heat molded or talked about that. We visited the footbed, and now we still have some pain in the calf or in the shin, right?
Right. Which I would do these in order, as you've talked about, right? Start small, work your way to the more aggressive fixes of your boot, so you don't have to worry about taking things back.
Right. And so a footbed will actually act a little bit like a heel lift to start. And that's why I like to go to the footbed before I go to the heel lift. So what a heel lift is going to do, and Austin really touched on this earlier, is it's going to allow your foot to come out of the boot a little bit more, lift that bottom of that foot up, and it will relieve the pain off the calf of the foot or calf of the leg. Yes. Now, this is huge for people whose calf is bumping up right up against their ski boot.
Right.
Because it can be a nightmare.
Yeah. This is like the number one fix before women's ski boots had the lower calves. It was every woman would have a heel lift in her boot because of that calf situation we talked about. Right. So 100% best fit. The other thing about a heel lift and an insole is oftentimes helping the ankle. Right. Each boot with the shell is molded a specific way. And they have these little ankle pockets. And if your ankle is rubbing and you feel just even a little bit of pressure, a little rub, it could be just because your ankle isn't seated into the ankle pocket of the ski boot.
Right.
Right. So a quick fix with that is going to be grabbing a small heel lift or insole that has just a little bit more, takes up some volume, lifts that ankle up, and that calf comes out of the boot. So you automatically are going to feel more comfortable with the calf out of the boot.
Yeah.
Right. And that ankle is going to sit in the little pocket where the pivot point is on the boot. It's going to make it feel 10 times better if you are feeling that rubbing pain.
Yeah, 100%. So now let's jump into our more drastic fixes, right? So someone who has a bunion or a bone spur, they might need to punch their boot.
Right. Shell molds and punches.
Yes.
Is my favorite part.
Yeah. So the shell molds are really cool because you can heat up the shell and then put your foot in it, almost like a liner mold.
Yep.
Which is really sweet.
Yep, and that comes on specific boots so that we are aware.
Not every boot does that.
Yes. Now, when we talk about a shell mold, in air quotes, it is a custom shell that Solomon sells, Atomic sells. I've seen them on head boots, and they are listed and usually say custom shell, right? Or moldable shell or something in that manner. That basically says I can throw this in a boot oven, heat it up, and let it just kind of mold around my foot. Extra comfort and can have a little more just better fit.
So then we get into punches. So what that is we're going to usually use a heat gun. You heat up a certain part of the boot that's giving the customer problems, and you use a tool on the inside of the boot and you push it out.
Right, a hydraulic pump usually that is pushing that plastic.
So then different boots have different things to accommodate for this. So my Technica here has these little dimples in high probability areas for punching.
Right.
And those dimples are to allow a boot fitter to be able to punch without losing plastic or integrity of the boot.
Right.
Which is really cool.
Yes. And it's really a way to help divvy the heat expansion, of the boot. I love it. I mean, we really have seen where a sport has gone into, science has just perfected these sports that we play.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And so something to talk about there when we get into punches, and this is something I've spent a lot of time in the shops doing, is really being able to understand what boot, you can really punch actually any boot, but some plastics are going to be better than others. And your boot fitter, you have to go to a boot fitter for this.
Yes.
Do not do this at home. I mean, there are YouTube videos, but don't do them because there is high probability of ruining your boot and having to throw that in the garbage.
Yeah.
Once you damage that plastic, it is done.
Yeah, and it's toast. You're not getting it back.
Yeah. So with those, though, some awesome fixes. If you do have a bunion or what we like to call, like a fifth toe.
Yeah.
Or sorry, sixth toe. Right? Yeah. Hope you have 5. If not, it's okay.
Yeah.
But that sixth toe area, if you have certain things on your foot that you've even experienced through life that are just a little more abnormal, have prescriptions or different issues that doctors have told you about, you don't have to give up skiing. You can take these into a boot shop where they heat it up with that gun and expand it. And generally it is expensive. So that is our last step. Because of the expensiveness, because of a last resort, that once that plastic is molded to a new position, it's done.
Yeah.
You can't remold it.
Yeah.
You can only expand it so far
and
until that plastic is just no longer usable.
So another one that is popular would be like a grind.
Yes.
So that's where your boot fitter will take a Dremel on the inside of your boot and shave off some of the material. Whether to make it lighter, to give you a little more room, whatever it be. Once again, let your boot fitter make that call and let your boot fitter make that adjustment for you.
Yep. I would never go straight to that process. Some people will try to get you to jump into doing a aggressive fit like that, an aggressive mold, by saying, buy the size smaller and we will punch it out and make it fit. Unless you are a professional skier and have a trusted source, that is something you'll want to stay away from, and make sure you're taking all the first steps of going through the regular heat mold, insole, all those other methods, do those first. If a shop ever pushes you past that before trying the first methods, it's just a good warning sign.
Yeah, it's a red flag.
Yep. All right. Great. So, the last thing that I want to just hit and kind of wrap up this podcast on the importance of boots. Trent, you've done a great job and appreciate having you here as always to go over, just how a boot fits. Let's just kind of recap what you should do to buy a boot if you are buying online today. What do you need to know to buy your first ski boot and get yourself out on the mountain?
First thing is identify your sizing. So we went over that first. We want to identify your size, your last. Okay.
Yep.
So let's say we have those. Okay. The next thing we need to identify is the flex. Okay.
Yes.
What do you want? Do you want something stiff? Do you want something aggressive? Do you want something a little bit easier? Right. Like I said, I like my 110s. They're great. the average boot fitter, if I told them my statistics, they'd like to put me in a 120 or 130. But that's why I'm lazy. Anyways, so those things. Identify yourself. Really, it's an introspection. And what I don't love hearing when I help people buy boots is, well, my buddy has this boot.
Yeah.
Great. I'm really glad your buddy loves that boot. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, it's going to be, all right, we buy it, we bring it home. First thing you do, try it on, flex it at your house, see how it feels.
Adjust any fits, pressure points as necessary.
Adjust your buckles accordingly. And then after that, go ski it. Yeah. Before you do any work to your boot, go ski it.
Test the boot.
Yeah.
Right? Put it to the test.
Yeah, and there's a lot of boot fitters that are going to be at the resort. So if you get up there and it's just killing you, someone's going to be able to help you.
Right.
A couple things, though, fair side note warnings. The only thing that should go in your boot is your sock. Do not tuck your base layer pants into your boots. That is a common problem that people have, and it cuts off blood flow and causes pain. Another one. Do not wear 2 pairs of socks.
No matter what.
Yeah. And you may be like, well, I always do that. And the reason is you just want one relatively thin wool sock because you're doing an active sport. So we want to wick the moisture away from your foot. That's going to keep it warm. And we want the blood, as much blood flow as possible.
Right. And I'm gonna just correct you on a small thing there. Non-cotton sock.
Yes.
It does not have to be wool. We know the science of cotton holding moisture.
Yeah.
Right. Moisture wicking sock is what we want. Yep.
So then if you are putting on 2 socks in your boot, you're going to be cutting off circulation. You're going to be adding volume in that boot. We just don't want that.
Yes.
And then once again, cotton is something you want to avoid in your ski boot.
Yep.
It is not what you want.
Right. Trust your boot. Trust your boot fitters. You know, your boot is going to keep you warm, not your sock.
Yep.
Right. And then just go out and have a great time on the mountain.
Yep.
Right. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on our podcast. Again, this is Into the Pines, Between Two Skis podcast, where we break down anything from a beginner's choice on a boot to the advanced skiers, and we are here to bring knowledge to you. So journey with us deeper into the pine, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.